You can go.
All right, we are all set. Well, welcome everyone to the first program in our 2020 Virtual Chautauqua Lecture Series. I'm Dakota Harkins. I'm the Director of Education and Heritage Programming here at Lakeside. And today we will be beginning our first week in the theme of Women on Sports. And in a few moments, I'm going to be introducing the two speakers who will be joining us today. They are live in North Carolina, JoAnne Russell and Steve Vaughan. But before I get to that, I want to say a few words about the upcoming Chautauqua Lecture Series season. As you all know, life has changed dramatically over the course of the last few months, and there is no exception for Lakeside. So in consideration of the health and safety of all of our speakers, our audience members, and our staff, will be hosting all of our Chautauqua Lecture Series programs online via Zoom webinar with a few minor exceptions. So each of the links to those programs will be provided on the Lakeside Chautauqua calendar as they were today. And if you have any questions throughout the season or suggestions about the schedule, please feel free to contact the Education Department directly and we will get you connected. We do ask that all participants use the question and answer function, which is at the bottom of your webinar page if you're watching right now. We'll be doing that because just like when we are on site in person, we'll be saving all of our questions until the end of the program. I'll be moderating those questions throughout as JoAnne and Steve are speaking, and then at the end we'll ask those on a split screen again. With permissions from each of our speakers, all of our programs are going to be recorded and then put online on our Lakeside YouTube page for later viewing that you can get a link to on our Lakeside website. So with that all out of the way, I would like to introduce today's speakers, Ms. JoAnne Russell and Steve Vaughan. JoAnne is a former professional tennis player, and her resume includes the 1977 Wimbledon Ladies Double title, 6 Women's Tennis Association titles, and a World Cup singles title. And she's currently a tennis pro at the Gray Oaks Country Club in Naples, Florida. And she is joined today by fellow tennis professional Steve Vaughan, who's a lifelong tennis player. And he has been a pro at a number of country clubs, including some in Ohio and Columbus, in Florida and in North Carolina, in Florida, where he was also the director of the Gray Oaks Country Club in Naples. So thank you both for joining us today to kick off our virtual Chautauqua lecture season. We wish you were here with us in Lakeside, where it's nice and humid, but we are really glad that you can join us remotely. So I will kick it off to the two of you, but before I do go, I just want to remind everyone again, please use the question and answer forum if you have any questions throughout. Thanks.
Thank you, Dakota. And good afternoon, Lakeside.
Yeah, I love Lakeside. I can't wait to go there.
We are going to do a little interview with JoAnne Russell here. As you all know, she was the 1977 Wimbledon Doubles champion, and she has some great stories, but we're going to start by going through her background a little bit. She grew up in Naples, Florida. And JoAnne, I understand there was a club called Royal Poinciana where you and your parents used to go and play.
We did. We started out at the park and Cambier Park, and they had 2 tennis courts that were made out of white cement, and they had a chickie in the middle of the court. So my parents would come down, and they loved tennis. So they'd play. We'd sit under the chickie at a picnic table and one single light bulb over that thing, and we would do our homework. And then once we were done, we could play tennis, we could do whatever we wanted while they played tennis.
And if you're like the rest of us back in the day, you grew up by just playing with all the members and all the old guys, et cetera, and so forth. Is that
yeah,
true?
I think my game was kind of set by these guys. They were all in their 70s, a few were 80s. And the first clinic I took in Naples, a guy who moved from St. Louis, and back then St. Louis was the hotbed of tennis, and it was free. So they didn't have what they have now. Oh yeah, juniors here, adults, this many adults, men, women. No, everybody just came. So I think I was 10 or maybe even younger than that. And I took my first clinic with a guy by the name of Russell Wrights, and he was 66 and he'd never played tennis. He was the best scuba diver in Naples, Florida. So there I was like maybe 8 or 10, and he's 66, and we're taking the clinic together. So I would go down to the park, and of course there's nobody my age to play with, and I'd sit at the picnic table, and then these guys would be playing, these guys in their 70s and 80s, and they would say, hey kid, you want to play? And I had my one rack, and I'm like, yes, yes. And they go, well, you know, Fred, he's not showing up. He's probably like died or something. So you get out here, you take Fred's place. And I'm like, so I was always taking somebody's place who never showed up. So these guys, they all had a lot of touch. They couldn't run worth a lick. So I ran for everything, but they could drop shot, they could lob, they volleyed. So that's what I grew up with. I didn't grow up with like a bunch of guys hitting power. You know, I had good touch.
Finesse.
Yes.
All right. What, did they have a wall at Canberra at that time?
Yeah, they did. They had a backboard, and even now I love the backboard. And when they were redoing Canberra Park, it's very fancy now. They've got all clay courts and a big pavilion, but they have one cement backboard. They were asking, should we tear this thing down? And I'm like, no, 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 no. I played on that backboard forever. And you know what? People still go and play on the backboard. They warm up for their matches. So even on occasion, I'll go down there and I'll hit on the backboard, and people go, you know, you're not bad. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that'll do.
Well, they don't expect to see somebody like you hitting on the wall at Canberra. But there were a lot of influential people that helped you get started as a kid. I know that you knew Julius and Irma Lesser.
Yes, and that was the guy, Julius Lesser. He was a realtor in town, but he came from St. Louis, and he loved tennis. And his wife, Irma, she's in her 80s now. I don't know if she still plays, but I think she won the city championship, I don't know, over 10 years in a row. I mean, it was an amazing run. Now, my mother, I asked her, I said, oof, I can play in the city championships. I could win that. And my mother said, no. I never got to play in the city championships. I go, Mom, I can win that tournament. And she goes, no, you need friends more than you need a city championship. And you know what? I think she was right. I mean, I am friends with everybody. And it's a good thing I never played that city championship.
Right. Well, you went through the juniors, and what were your rankings in the juniors? What was that like?
You know, I grew up with Chris Evert, Jeannie Evert, Carrie Fleming, Lori Fleming. I mean, there were so many good players. I was not ranked like in the top 5, I can assure you. I mean, maybe 10, 15
Right.
in that area, but Florida was really good. So, you know, when your number 1 player in your age group every year is Chris Evert, and the woman, even when she was a little girl, she never missed a ball.
Right.
I mean, she'd hit a 100-ball rally against Lori Fleming. It was the most amazing thing. I mean, I did fall asleep, but whew, it was amazing.
That was quite the class to grow up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then after the juniors, you went off and went to college, and you attended Trinity College in San Antonio. Tell us about that.
Trinity University was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, that was not my first choice. I wanted to go to, I think it was Arizona, and they were number 1 in the country. And back then, there was no social media. There was really no computer. So I got on the phone, I called, I left my name, you know, and, you know, a little bit of whatever. And I wrote letters. You know, you actually put stamps on those things. And no one called me back. No one called me. No one said, you stink, you can't make our team. I mean, you know, I can deal with rejection. It's not like I was Chris Evert in the juniors. She never lost a match. Well, I lost plenty. So, but I was devastated that I couldn't go there. So luckily for me, I went to Trinity University, and I had no idea. I knew one person who was on that team, and it was Donna Stockton. That's Dick Stockton's younger sister. And I thought, well, I've seen her play, and she is really good. So at least I'll have one good person. And it ended up Mary Ham, who was from St. Louis, Val Frenta, myself. We made up like a dynamo from Trinity. I went 3 years to college, and we won 2 out of the 3 years and were runner-up. And Donna Stockton graduated, and she won 3 NCAA championships 3 out of the 4 years. So, and was runner-up. And she was my doubles partner, lucky me. And we won the NCAA doubles together. So it was awesome for me because I'd never done a drill. There was not a person in Naples, Florida, like I could go, hey, do you want to hit forehand cross courts? It just wasn't happening. So for me, I played a lot. I mean, there was no like hiding from anybody. I think nowadays people tend to not want to play somebody who might be better than them.
Mess up their ranking or something.
Yeah, well, forget that. I mean,
yeah.
You just went out and you played.
Right.
But Trinity, really, I became a much better player, and you learn how to be on your own, and you're not just thrown out there.
And so after 3 years at Trinity and winning the NCAA doubles title, you decided to turn pro.
Well, I did. We were playing as amateurs in this circuit. It was called the Ms. America circuit. And people who didn't go to Europe, you know, Wimbledon, French Open and stuff, they stayed home. So this was like a circuit for them. So I played really well. I won 2 of the doubles. I got to the semis. I got to the finals. I won singles. So I thought, okay, now's the time for me to turn pro. And they had a end of the circuit, you know, the top 16 singles, the top 8 doubles. And I got in both. And I thought, okay, I'm turning pro now. And my mom, she wanted me to graduate from college. But you know what? She said, you know what? You have our blessing because it's something you want to do. But you have to realize I have 2 sisters and a brother, and we're all kind of close in age. And she said, well, we are paying for them to go to college. So we would love to support you, but you're going to have to support yourself. And you know what? It's really good when your parents tell you how it is. They can't just dump the other kids because, you know, you're, maybe a pro. Right. So.
Well, that's great. And so after you made that decision, how difficult was it and how scary was it going out on circuit and playing all these people that are tops in the world and you're just coming out of college?
Well, you know what? Doubles really helped me because I always felt very confident in my double skills because I had a good volley. I mean, I needed to improve a few other things, but you'd go out and you would play people who were ranked really high and you'd beat them in doubles. And I would look at it like this. I go, they're not that good. Because when you just see somebody, you walk out on the court, you're playing singles and you hear all these stories about people and you've never played them, you go, oh, wow, they must be really good.
By reputation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? You lose 3 games right away because just their reputation. So you have to fight 3 times harder just to get even. So now I'm already thinking they're not as good as their reputation because we just clobbered them in doubles. So I would take that, and I had a lot of carryover wins from my doubles in singles, and that just kept me going. Like I did fantastic in my first pro tournament. I got to the quarters in singles and semis in doubles. So I earned money, and then I took that money and I went, okay, I could go to the next tournament. And, you know, I didn't have any sponsors till later, but I'm telling you, you really, you know what, one thing, as Steve knows, he's one of my best friends, how competitive I am. I mean, it's terrible. You know, you could be 80 and crippled and I will drop shot you. One of my best friends is Mary Carrillo. I played her in a pro tournament. We were both just starting out. And I was going to play her in the semis of this tournament. So I see on the news, Mary hits the last ball and wins her match, and she falls down. Well, then they say, well, I think Mary Carrillo has a knee injury. Well, Mary came out the next day. I think I drop shot at her 100 times.
And this is your best friend.
Yes. And she looked at me at the end of the match and she said, you know what? I do the same to you. And, you know, I just love tennis for that. You know, I still have the same friends that I made when I was playing on tour.
Well, did you have any mentors that were on tour at the time? Because a lot of times you'll meet an influential person and kind of latch onto them, and they'll give you the guidelines and tell you, you know how it is.
Now they have a big mentor program in the Women's Tennis Association. But back then, no, they didn't have anybody. But I had friends who'd been playing before me, Janet Newberry. And I could always ask Janet, like, what do you think? What is this? And I mean, I was fortunate that I had friends who would tell me the truth.
Well, I understand that, you know, when everybody's out there just dog eat dog kind of world, I understand that you went through something like that with Billie Jean King one time.
Well, hey, if you think I'm competitive, you should look at Chris Evert and Billie Jean King. I mean, they are incredible. So, like, Billie, she could, before they had rules, you know, where you get a point penalty or a game penalty for whatever. I mean, Billie would, if she's losing, she would stall. She would do whatever it took. Like, if I'm on a roll, you know, she would say, she would start an argument with the linesman or the umpire or something. And so one thing, you know, my coach taught me, he said, you know, look, I'm not going to be there every tournament. You have to learn how to speak up for yourself. And I go, and he said, and I mean it, because nobody else is going to do it. So Billie's arguing with the umpire, and they just started these rules where it was like 30 seconds. I don't even think it's 30 seconds anymore. And then you get a warning and you get this and that. So I march up to that umpire, and I'm looking at my watch like that going, I go, I've set my timer and she's getting 30 seconds. It's going to be up in 5 seconds, and you better give her a point penalty. I mean,
You wouldn't let her push you around.
well, you know, hey, I played team tennis with her, and it was an experience.
Right. So you're out there and you're in this dog eat dog world, and who was your first big win in singles?
In singles. Well, Hilton Head was a family circle cup. Was a huge tournament for us, and I beat Martina there in singles in the quarterfinals. And you know, it's close to everybody in my family, so they're all there. I mean, my family is all there, and they're like clapping, cheering. And actually, I beat Martina at another tournament in Detroit. Well, no, I lost to her there, but it's same thing. You know, I went and did like a free thing for, I spoke at the, okay, here's another story. They needed somebody to, I thought it was just go to a luncheon. I went with Lee Jackson, who was our head referee, and we get there, and it was the Detroit Athletic Club. And if you've ever been there, I don't think they allow women in the Detroit Athletic Club.
They did it then.
Yes. And you could not, if you were a woman, go in the front door. Well, I had no idea of any of this stuff. So we're driving by the front. There were these 2 lines, these big steps and pillars and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, this is impressive. I was like, oh, this could be a good lunch. So they drive around to the side, and I'm like, what's all this? I mean, we can go in the front. And he's like, no. And I went, no. And Lee Jackson's there, you know, she's trying to smooth it out. And I'm like, what is this? And they go, oh no, we're going to go in here. You're going to speak. And I go, speak? What are you talking about? No one told me I was speaking. And now they're like, I'm like, wow, this is going to be bad. So now we go in the club side door. So we walk in, and I see this big sign. It's the Beaver Club. I'm looking at that sign, and I said, you know what? I went to school in San Antonio, Texas, and I'm telling you, I'm not going in there. I said, I don't know what it means here, but it doesn't mean anything good in Texas. And now I'm walking out, and the man's like, no, it's a swim club. It's 100 years old. I think you need to rename that club. So, and I said, and I want proof. So he had to get out some ledger that's 100 years old. And I went, okay, fine, I'll go. Yeah. So we go, and we're sitting next to a swimming pool, and they're having, all these men are playing water volleyball. And so I'm talking with the president of the bank and whatever. And a guy comes out from the locker room. It's a little ways away from us. So I elbow the head honcho, and I said, hey, can you tell me what that man's name is down there, you know, by the edge of the pool? And he goes, well, what guy? I said, and I went, hey, and a guy turns. He had no clothes on. I mean, he was stark naked. I was laughing so hard. I said, what a welcome. And now the president of the bank's like, no, women, they're here speaking. So I get up to speak in front of these men. And I said, well, I guess you really don't have women coming to this club unless they're popping out of a cake or something like that. And I said, wow, what a welcome I had. And Frank, I'd like to thank you for making me feel so welcome in your birthday suit. These guys are all yelling, throw her in the pool. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I told them I had a match that night. I was playing Martina in the quarters. Everyone came out.
Oh, that's
they
great.
were so rowdy. And Martina looks at me, she beats me in 3.
Yeah.
And she said, are you from Detroit? And I said, no, but I have a lot of friends here.
That you made that afternoon.
Yes.
That's great. That's a great story. So obviously you were a doubles specialist. What was your highest ranking in singles and doubles?
My highest ranking in singles was 11 in the world. And then I played with Rosie Casals. She just asked me out of the blue to play. And I played with her 3 months, I think. And we got ranked 1.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, wow. Poof.
Yeah.
I think she didn't play with me again for 10 years or something. I don't know what happened there, but it was fun. It was fun.
So, I mean, you would obviously meet Rosie later on, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But you also began to start playing the big events, the Grand Slams. You went to all 4.
Yes, and I played well at Wimbledon, US Open, the Australian Open, and the French Open. My feet were allergic to red clay. I was so bad on red clay. Now I think I would be better, but I'm too old.
For those of you that don't know about the Grand Slams, what happens at the Grand Slams is if you reach the quarterfinals, you become a member of their Final 8 club. And if you're a member of their Final 8 club, you can go back to that tournament every year for the rest of your life and get tickets and get into the event.
I know, I love that.
Yeah.
So I can get into all 3.
Right. So she's a Final 8 club member at all 3, not the French, but the other 3. And so then you go in 1977 and you're supposed to play doubles with Janet Newberry. And Janet says, Joanne, I'm sorry, but I've got to play with somebody else. So you were left without a partner.
Right.
And tell me the rest of the story.
Janet forgot to tell her partner she was playing with me. And once again, there's no computers. And Wimbledon, first entry they receive, that's it. You cannot change. I mean, it could be different now. Maybe they're a little more flexible. So needless to say, I'm a little ticked off. So the WTA calls up and says, well, here's the list of people. And I said, well, just read it off. So they're reading all these names and I'm thinking, these people never come to the net. I have never seen them come to the net unless they're shaking hands at the end of the match. So they get down to the end and they say, Helen Gourley. And when I was in college, I went to a pro tournament in Houston, was playing in the qualifying, trying to get in. And I thought I saw Helen play a doubles match. And, you know, I was kind of thinking back and I thought she came to the net a couple of times and volleyed. And I went, okay, sign me up with her. And so that was how I got my partner. It was not a lot of thinking. I went, oh, I'm desperate here.
Right. Right. So you meet Helen. Actually, you didn't meet Helen. So the funny thing is you had never met her. You had never played doubles with her. And now all of a sudden you're in the Wimbledon doubles tournament and you go to your first round match. And from what I understand, Helen may have gotten a little lost.
Well, she wasn't lost, but at Wimbledon at that time, they had 3 different locker rooms. Now, if you win a championship, you are in the members' locker room. Well, needless to say, I was not there. I was sort of in this middle locker room, and Helen was in the dungeon. Honest to goodness, it was below street level. And so they call you for your match, and you have to, you have to get the call, and then you walk out. Well, we are playing the second seeds in the first round. It was Rosie Casals and Chris Evert. So they said, well, did you lose your partner? And I said, no, she's here. And I had no idea if she was there or not. But I said, no, she's there, but she's in a different locker room. So it's going to take her a little bit longer to get here. She finally gets here. And, I was starting to sweat a little bit because I had no idea every time the gate did anything. I had no idea what she looked like. And I wasn't about to tell Rosie or Chris. I didn't know what she looked like. So she comes walking in, she's this little teeny petite thing. I mean, honestly, I thought I looked gigantic compared to her. So she walks up to me and she says, do you mind playing the backhand side? And I looked at her and I went, I love the backhand side. I always play the backhand side. Needless to say, I hadn't played backhand side since I was 12 years old. I always played the forehand, and Steve knows I played with him many times, still play the forehand side. But you do not tell somebody you don't know that you cannot play the backhand side. I just told her I was unbelievable over there. So then she says to me, do you mind serving first? And I said, no, I am serving incredibly. So I realized she did not see my match against Rosie Casals. I was first on. It was the worst match I've ever played at Wimbledon. I think I double faulted 25 times. And somebody, I think it was an umpire, came up to me as I was walking back to the locker room and said, hey, Miss Russell, you know, that match was 31 minutes. And I'm looking at this man, I'm thinking, are you trying to make me feel better? I said, well, you're doing a heck of a job. So there was not a lot of bonuses from my singles match, but I'm telling Helen, no problem. I'll serve first. I am the greatest server you have ever seen. And I was just so happy she hadn't seen that match. I was like, yes, I think we got a chance here. So we go out to play and, you know, it's like 1-1, 2-1, and Helen gets up to serve. And honestly, she served and I didn't really hear it. I mean, her serve is really spinny. And it kind of rolled up and hit me in the foot. And I went, uh-oh, this could be bad. I didn't turn around, I just kicked the ball over the ball boy. And we lose her serve. So, okay, I'm just walking past Rosie and Chris. Now, they're not being mean, they're talking amongst themselves, but when you walk past somebody, you can hear every word. And they're saying, you know, if we hurry, we can make the play at 7. Like they give us free tickets to all the best plays in London. So I'm thinking, I hope Helen didn't hear that. So I sit and I'm toweling off, drinking water. And so Helen, she comes over, she sits down, she looks at me and she is gritting her teeth and she is like, we are not losing this match. And now I'm going, yes. So I swear we broke right back, and then we had a plan what to do on her serve. She had a plan what to do on my serve, and she was the fastest player I've ever seen. She could volley from anywhere. So I went, okay, you are a goddess. And we won 7-5, 6-2, I think.
And that was the first round.
That was the first
over
round.
the number 2 seeds.
Yes.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you played a seeded team every round.
Yes, like somebody said, oh, you know, you beat that team. Did you play like nobody in the next couple rounds? I go, no. I said, every round we're playing the 14th seed, the 6th seed, the 7th seed, whatever, you know, whoever, they all won their rounds to get there. So, and every round was like an adventure. So we play, the South African team, and they're like either the 7th or the 12th season, I forget. So we're on court 2. Now court 2 is a separate court. Back then it was attached to center court. Or we played on court 1, excuse me. So there were people sitting in the stands and you could just see their heads over this cement wall. Well, it had been raining. Of course, it rains all the time at Wimbledon. And so, you know, they have different things now. Now they have tarps with blowers. Well, back then they had ball boys that rolled up the tarps and they push them over to the side. So we're playing a point, and like Helen just cannot win, get a return in. So I think I've saved it like 12 times, that's a lot of times to be saving anything on grass. So I look at her and I say, Helen, for Pete's sakes, just hit her in the head with the ball. And she's looking at me like, oh, Kelly Moses, who is this? And I said, oh, she's a pro, she's got a dunk. So the ball comes on the serve, she just wails it right at the girl, she falls on the ground, it goes in. I go, oh, you're amazing. So during that match, we had this long rally, and the court is mowed, and then they have the plush grass outside. Then they have the the rolled up tarps, and then the people are sitting there. So I run wide for a ball, and my foot hits the wet plush grass, and it was like a slip and slide, and I hit the tarp with my legs, and Helen told me later, she says, your feet were over your head. And I was sort of diving over this cement wall, and my hand went down, and I hit a guy right in a very important spot. And he's yelling, oh, and I'm yelling, oh, and fell on my head. And I felt so bad. I mean, he was British, and let me tell you, he was like, I'm perfectly fine, perfectly fine. And I said, I am so sorry. So now I'm standing up, and they can only see my head, and I'm like, Helen, help me get out of here. So there are people pushing me, she's pulling me, and I look at her and I go, did we win the point?
Oh,
We did win that match, though. It was fun.
that's good. So you progressed through the draw, and then who did you play in the semifinals?
We played Sue Mappin and Leslie Charles, and they were the British team. And so, of course, no one was cheering for us. But the tournament before Wimbledon is Eastbourne. And that's where I was supposed to play with Helen. So Helen couldn't make it. So I played with a friend, Betsy Nagelson, who's a good player, and we played Mappin and Charles. So, of course, it's raining, and the courts are slippery. And during one point, my partner, she falls down, but she can get to the ball. I mean, she's so coordinated. She's like crawling on her hands and knees, diving, and she flips it up over the net. And there is Sue Mappin. So my partner is laying face down. I move to pretty near off the court, and my hands are down. She could have just tapped in, and I wasn't standing in front of her overhead. So we're all relaxed there, and she hits this overhead and hits me right in the face with the ball. Oh my goodness, I'm telling you. So we're playing them in the semis of Wimbledon, and I get an overhead, and Sue Mappin is standing in front of me. I wind up, I look at her, and I hit that ball so hard, I frame it. It goes over Sue, it's flying, and it's going into the royal box. And so, of course, I mean, if you're European, you could probably kick the ball, but nobody's catching that ball unless you're American. So, of course, all these men are diving out of the way, and Helen's looking over there and she says, I think you hit the queen. I don't think I did, but it was a good story.
But the whole royal family was there for that match.
Oh, yes. It was British.
Yeah.
And we did win that and eventually got to the finals.
And in the finals, you had to play the #1 ranked team in the world?
Yes, and that was Martina Navratilova and Betty Stöve. And they had not lost one match all year long. So, number one, I went down to Helen's locker room, and she really was below street level. So I'm looking around and I go, Helen, is there a window in here? And she's like, no. And I said, I'm finding a window. So I had to go into the last stall, the bathroom stall. I put down the toilet seat. I stood on top of the toilet seat, and I looked out, and there was a little hole there, and I could see people's feet. And I went, you're right, there's no window here. So we were in the bottom locker room, and luckily the locker room attendant, she brought her own TV in. So we're watching the men's final, which was, I think,
77. Connors.
Yeah, it was Connors and Borg, I think. Yeah. And so it took a long time. So Helen and I are down in the locker room. So finally they called down to us, because they call you up when they think the match is soon to be over. And they're all like frantic. They go, well, where were you? And I said, we were in our locker room. I said, you just haven't been below street level. I said, come on. I mean, what, the phone doesn't work down here? So we take our stuff and go to the waiting room. And it's kind of cool because they've got pictures of all past champions, and you sit in there and wait. And then they call you for your match, and you go out and you turn and you curtsy to the royal box. Mm-hmm. And it was the Duke and Duchess of York. And they love tennis. So we go out, and of course I'm serving first. So my partner, who is the best, Helen Gourley, I look at Helen and I said, Helen, I am so nervous. I don't think I can hit a first volley. So I don't care wherever my serve goes and they return it, you've got to go. You've just got to poach on everything. And she said, no problem, I'll do it. I mean, that's the kind of partner you want. Somebody doesn't question. She just says, no problem, I'm doing it. She picked off 3 balls, we're up 40-love. And finally they hit one behind her and I've already run a long way. So now I'm not as nervous. I make my volley, we win the game, boom. I go, thank you, Helen, you're the best.
Well, that's great. So you ended up winning the match. Do you remember the score?
I think it was 6-2, 6-3. I mean, it was pretty easy. But I have the commentators, like my partner, her mother, she lives in Tasmania, and she taped it.
Oh, nice.
So I still have a copy of that, and it's the British broadcasters.
Mm-hmm.
So when we came out and were warming up on court, they were saying, Dan Maskell and John Barrett, very famous tennis broadcasters, that we did not have a snowball's chance in hell, pretty much, because these were the champions and we were an unseeded team who'd never played together except for this tournament. And I loved it. I went, wow, I wish I could have heard that before I started. But it was so fun.
Yeah. So I think it may have been that same year. I don't know if it was or not, but I think it may have been the same year that you got all the way to the round of 16 and you had to play Sylvia Hanukkah in the round of 16. And the winner of that match had to play Martina in the quarters. So I understand that Sylvia said something that you didn't like much in the press conference.
Well, it was a few years later. I think it was in 82 or something like that. And so I beat Sylvia Hanukkah and she was seated 4th, I think. And so she goes into the press conference. And really, I had never been down there. So, to the press room. So Sylvia goes down in there and she wasn't the best sport there. She says, she has no chance against Martina Navratilova in the quarters. So I go in there and the press guys, of course they want a little, and they look at me and they say, yeah, Sylvia said you have no chance against Martina. And I said, well, I got a better chance than she does.
That's one of the greatest comeback lines ever. Are there any other stories of Wimbledon that you'd like to share?
Well, like that year that I played Martina in the quarters, it rained so much that year. They were 128 matches behind. That's a lot of matches, especially on grass. So they played on the weekend, and they played starting at 9 o'clock. So, and they also had a transportation strike, which meant no subway, no buses, no taxis. Maybe there was a taxi, I don't know. But at Wimbledon, you would call them up and they would come to your place if you were within their radius. I was in London. And so I got up because I was first on at 9. So I got up at 6 o'clock or earlier, called and said, I even remember the name, I said it so many times, number 9 Sydney Street, JoAnne Russell, I need to be picked up. Okay, good, we're coming. So, okay, you stretch, you get your clothes. The guy that was there hitting with me, he was from Naples, Florida, his name's Pete Minerich. So we're just kind of hanging out, waiting. Now it is 8:30, or it was 8 o'clock and there was nobody there. Cause usually they come early, so you can get there. And, then it was 8:45. I called again and they go, no, we've sent the car, but it's traffic and this and that. So now it's coming up. I'm calling. I said, what's the problem here? So I am panicking, kind of, because I can't get there in time. So Ted Tingling, who is a famous dress designer, he's standing there and he's listening to the referee. And what had happened was someone said they would come pick me up, and they actually put my slip of paper down and they picked up another one. So they assumed somebody was there. So Ted Tingling informed them that she has every right to sue the All England Club because if you default her. So they said they would not default me. And of course I went, okay, what's your name?
Yeah.
And what is your rank?
Yeah.
Because I want to talk to somebody who's the head here. So, okay, they did not come pick me up, and I was calling every 15 minutes until 12:30 or 12 o'clock. I mean, you want to know, I sweated through like one set of clothes because I was so nervous. This young lady comes and we run down, we get in the car, and she goes, I will get you there in 15 minutes. And I'm thinking, oh boy, okay, well, just get us there. So she is kind of driving pretty fast, and we're going through Battersea. Battersea back then was not a good neighborhood. So she's kind of taking the back ways. And so I'm in the front seat, and I'm thinking, because it's chilly and I'm sweating, that I'm fogging up the window. So Pete's in the back seat, I'm in the front with the driver, and I'm looking at her going, I think our car's on fire. The dash is on fire. Pretty much smoke is pouring out of the dash. I said, pull over. So she pulls over, and the electrical system in our car burns up. I mean, it is on fire. And I'm thinking, what else could go wrong? So we had no phone.
Right.
She had to run to some bar and maybe see if she could get in to make a phone call. Well, needless to say, I'm standing out in the road and I'm looking the wrong way because they go the opposite way of us. I almost get hit by a car. And then I see another Wimbledon car coming. So I'm flagging them down like this. I go, stop, stop. And they're kind of full, but they go, no, we'll take you. They said, we thought you were there already. I go, oh, hey, you got to tell them the car is on fire. So we squeeze in. I'm sitting down in somebody's lap. We finally get there. And the umpire tells me, oh, you are on in 10 minutes. And I go, no. I said, I need a half an hour. I said, I want to tell you our car is on fire and it's in Battersea. I said, I had to hitchhike here. I said, come on now. So in 30 minutes, I go out and I'm playing this girl. She must have been waiting. She was waiting. At least she was there. She got a warm up. I had no warm up. So I get out there. The first set is over in, I don't know, maybe 12 minutes. I mean, it was bad. And my friends had all come, and you know, their bars open a lot earlier than ours, especially on the grounds. So they were all half in the bag, and they're yelling, come on, Joanne, you know, whatever. So I lose the first set, 6-1, 2-1, rain delay. So we go in there, and it's like 2-hour rain delay. So now I put on my clean set of clothes. I go back out. We play, and now I'm kind of getting going, and it's like 3-2, 3-3, and I'm feeling good. Rain delay. Now my friends are paying the ball boys to unroll our tarp first. I mean, they're going, 10 pounds if you roll that tarp first. You know, don't go to that court. And I'm like, thank God for my friends. So okay. Now we go back in, 3-hour rain delay. And I'm thinking, I'm getting exhausted here. Now I have no more clean clothes. So I'm just saying, can I use your dryer? So I'm drying the wet, smelly clothes, and I'm putting those back on. So we go back out. I win the second set, and we have one more rain delay. And we go back in, come back out, and I win in the third against Pam Casals. I mean, I was exhausted. It was 9 o'clock at night. So I started at 6, and one match was on that court. But I'm telling you, you know, you get in different situations in your life, and you think they're tough, and you go, come on.
Right.
You know, nothing's that tough. You just got to hunker down and, you know, work through it. And I'm telling you, you learn a lot when you play matches like that.
And so what year did you decide to retire from the tour?
I retired sort of in maybe 84, 85, and it was because of an injury. I had a foot injury that just would not get better, and then I had a back injury. I mean, you you deal with those things, but it was just taking too long. I'd play one tournament and then it would take me 2 weeks to maybe recover a little bit. And you know what?
Just couldn't keep doing
No.
it.
And you want to play the best of your ability. Like, okay, Chris Evert wins everything, Steffi Graf, Monica Seles, Martina. They win a lot of things, but like me, I have to play my absolute best, and they have to play just a little bit down, and you can't get psyched out. So, you know, I couldn't do that anymore. And I just went, well, this is not any fun anymore.
So you got into college coaching. How did that come about?
Well, I was in Gainesville, Florida, and one of my friends, she said, oh, I would love to have you at my club. And I really liked her. It's funny, I pick jobs based on, okay, I really like this person I'm working with. They're a good pro. They've got lots of energy. I mean, that's what it is. Yes, I could have made more money someplace else, but I liked this person. So when I was there, I volunteered for the Florida Gators.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a volunteer for two or 3 years, I think. And in the 1 year, we didn't even lose a match. Not one, not a dual match, not a SEC match. We won the NCAAs. They won the singles and doubles in the individuals. They won the team. I mean, it was the most amazing year. And once again, I made a friend who was the assistant coach, and the head coach was Andy Brandy. And before he even took me on as a volunteer, he said, I want to make sure it's okay with my new assistant. Well, he was like, are you kidding me? He said, JoAnne Russell? He said, come on. And we were best friends. And when he got a head coaching job, he said, why don't you come and be my assistant? And so I worked for him for 8 years, and he made me, you know, the assistant head coach. But I go, no, I'm good. I said, I don't need a title to make myself feel better. I said, I'm working with the absolute best person I could work with. And that's why I stayed in college tennis. Nice. And I loved it.
Nice. And then your parents were having failing health, and you decided to return back to Naples. Tell me about that. Yes.
My mom and dad, you know, when your parents get elderly, things happen. And family is very, very important to me. I mean, I never missed one Christmas. I didn't care when the Australian Open was. I was going to be home for Christmas. Now, Thanksgiving didn't even count, but Christmas was it for me. And so when my dad was bedridden, my mom could walk a little bit, so I came home and I met Steve Vaughan. And it was the best meeting I could ever have, because I've learned more coaching, more how to treat people, you know, how you are with your family. Because when I never had a problem, whenever, if it was my mom, and she loved tennis. So she couldn't walk, she had COPD. We would come over, I'd be playing an exhibition. And we would have hundreds of people there. Steve would always get good exhibitions. He would put my mom and my sister at the table underneath where we changed sides or got water or whatever. My mom was like the queen. And, you know, hey, how can you not want to work for somebody like that? I mean, my mother, when I was there last year and a half, maybe 2 years, I would go play with friends of mine, and they realized I was bringing my mother every Wednesday when I would play with them. So they'd tell me, okay, park in this space and take that path. And they would have a chair under the chickee, and my mom would be there. They'd have water, and, you know, God bless my mom, you know, she smoked. And even when she used an oxygen machine, she'd take it off. They had an ashtray there for her. God bless them. So, I mean, Naples, Florida was a blessing for me. I love my hometown.
And so you and I got to work together for a long time. And we've been teaching together. We got lucky enough to be invited to Lakeside, Chautauqua last year
Yes.
to do a camp, and we get to come back again this year. We will be there the 23rd through the 26th of July doing camps, and we had so much fun last year, met so many nice people that we were
Oh yeah.
dying that it wasn't going to happen this year because of this pandemic. But luckily, Ohio's starting to open up, and so we are going to be able to go. So I think we fly out the 22nd, and we're
Yes.
there the 23rd through the 26th.
And you know, people ask me, you take tennis lessons? And I go, yes. And they go, well, who do you take a lesson from? I go, Steve. So it's like a big running joke. I said, every time I come to Linville Ridge to work with him, I go, well, I'm only coming if you work on my backhand, or my forehand, I can't get it in. He fixed my forehand volley. So for 3, 4, 5 years, he works on a specific thing. And I'm telling you, that's why I love tennis. Because it doesn't matter how old you are, if you want to improve.
Or how good you are. Because, I mean, can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, past Wimbledon champions, they come and work on my forehand volley, and she won the doubles title? That's hard to imagine.
My volley's way better now that Steve worked on it. I mean, I can't believe how many more tournaments I would have won if Steve had been my coach.
Well, we've had a great run, and we are just so looking forward to coming up there. We're also going to do something else for Lakeside. We're going to put a couple of lessons out there on video, and we're going to send them so that you all have them in your video library. So we're going to be doing those within the next week, I hope, and get a couple of video lessons out there for you all to watch. So Dakota, I think we're ready for the Q&A if you're ready.
All right. Well, that was fantastic. I especially liked hearing about your competitive nature, JoAnne. It makes me feel a little bit better about how I play against my siblings and friends. So that was a good thing.
Oh, don't worry, my siblings are plenty competitive, especially when they play against me.
Yeah, that's probably what makes you competitive too. So we did have a couple questions come in. The first one would be, if you could play another sport, what would it be?
You know what? I love basketball. I would play basketball. I tried volleyball. Oh my God, I can't jump at all.
Yeah, jumping usually helps with volleyball. It does.
Yeah, I mean, they were just spiking it into my face. I was like, not a sport for me. Ick.
Yeah, basketball, I'm sure you would be great at too. Okay, and then an anonymous attendee asked, if you could give any advice for young players starting out, what would be the #1 thing?
Don't worry about your ranking. I mean, that hampers everyone. And play a lot, and don't be afraid. Like I get beaten in practice, and I would be so upset because, as you know, I'm competitive. But when I played that person in a match, I always won. It could be I would wipe them out, or it'd be close. It didn't matter. I mean, I don't know what it was. If you don't play and put pressure on yourself, like I would play with these boys, and they, you know, none of us really had money, but we bet a Coke. And let me tell you, when you're betting a Coke or a knee high or whatever it was, and it wasn't that much, it was 25 cents and in a glass bottle. And you didn't have it, and they wanted it after that was pressure. I mean, when you're like a kid, you're like, oh God, I'm gonna have to give them this Coke. And I mean, I'm telling you, I was diving on a hard court there. They were not gonna win.
But the other thing is just love it.
Yeah.
Just love it.
Oh, I loved to play
I mean,
tennis.
we couldn't, neither one of us could wait to get up in the morning and grab your racket and go play. That's where it is. I mean, the more you love it, the more you want to do it. Then as you get better, you can start taking it a lot more seriously, but just love it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, think about it. Roger Federer, he could retire. He has $100 million in the bank or more or whatever.
And he still loves it.
He loves to play because it's a lot of work to be good.
To be good, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you definitely both exude that passion for it, so that's a good point to make. So we have another one. When you started out in your career, were there any significant differences for women versus men in tennis?
Well, you know, I started out juniors using a wood racket. So, and they were heavy. And you know what? We developed more, like you sliced, you could lob. I mean, if you were lucky enough, you could hit hard. I didn't really hit that hard. You learned how to chip, come to the net. You better learn how to volley. So even now, I play the same way. It just takes me a little longer to get to the net because I have to work the ball a little bit longer. I'm not as fast as I used to be.
But the big thing was versus men's tennis versus women's tennis, where they had Lamar Hunt. The men's tennis had
yes.
Lamar Hunt. He was spending a lot of money and giving a lot of prize money. And Virginia Slims came in, and they did a good job too. But it was never equal. I mean, the ladies' tour was always less money.
Yeah, if you were talking about the tour, yes. Lamar Hunt really was amazing for the men. But, you know, hey, women's tennis especially has really come up. And, you know, sometimes at Wimbledon they go, oh, the women, look at these matches, they're so unequal. And then the men would have good matches. Then the next year, the men's matches would be horrible. Right. And the women's matches would be good. So I kind of go, you know, just take it easy on that. Right. Like who's better, who's worse. I mean, they would have good matches, both men and women. See, so you can always justify whatever you want.
But the prize money has come a long way on the women's tour.
It has, yeah.
Well, that's such a good thing to hear. It's come a long way. Here's a fun one. Do you have any pre-game rituals?
Yes, she does.
Wait a minute. You tell. What are they, Steve?
Okay. Her pre-match ritual is that she's got this stone cold sober face. First of all, she's not going to look at you. She's not going to laugh. She is like ultra business. Okay.
Yes, it's true.
But I don't know if you know anything about clay courts, but on clay courts, the lines are nailed. And so JoAnne Russell, before every return of serve, she will not let you serve to her until she has taken her racket and tapped the area between two nails, and then she's ready. So
I do tap the ground. But you know what? When I look up, I am ready. I don't hear anything. Like someone said, oh, did you hear that guy that dropped a tray of dishes? I go, no.
But trust me, you don't want to serve before she's tapped her nail.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do tap the ground.
That's great.
Steve would notice that. Because I'll be like, wait.
Right.
Then I look up, and then I love to return serve, too.
It's almost like, you know, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Like, when she's ready, it's like the lights come down just on her. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. The tennis and pickleball staff said that they're very excited to see you both again this summer, and they want to know, what is your favorite thing to do at Lakeside aside from tennis?
Oh, wow.
Wow. Well, I haven't played on the new pickleball courts, but I do like pickleball. And it's so funny. If you watch me play pickleball and tennis, I play exactly the same. I have a very unusual pickleball game because like Simone Jargin, who comes there, she said, I don't think I've seen anybody slice. Like I chip the return and it stays really low, and then I run to the net and make a volley. Well, in tennis, if you have a big serve, Steve has a big serve, I chip it and I run to the net and I make volleys. And she's like laughing. She goes, yeah, everybody like freaks out when you return. So I do love to play pickleball, but I like the water. I really do.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, one of the families took me out on their boat while I was there, and it's just fantastic.
Well, it's beautiful, and the water is high here. So we'll be excited to welcome you back here to Lakeside whenever you get here in July. And thank you both for joining us today and sharing all of your experiences and your wisdom. I think it was a fantastic program. So for those watching the program, you're going to receive a lecture, a survey afterwards by email. When you signed in, we were able to get your email. So you'll be receiving one of those. If you don't receive a link, please let me know at dharkins@lakesideohio.com. We'd like to do an evaluation of all of our programs this year and make sure that we can get some people back, because we did have some Q&As that were actually just suggestions. Please come back. So we'll make sure to get all of those down. And thank you all for joining us today, and make sure you stop back tomorrow at 10:30. We'll be back on our morning schedule, and we'll be welcoming Dr. Ashley Brown from Wisconsin. And she's going to be talking about the role of female tennis players in international travel during the Cold War and the political advantage of the tennis tournaments that they played while doing that. So with that, we are sending you all lots of love from Lakeside, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. See you soon, Lakeside.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah. Did you get it?
I think so.
Thanks. Thanks.